Hey everyone, anti-vaxxers used to be a huge uprising of people that were passionate and adamant about not getting the vaccine. Or even worse, spreading lies about all dumb stuff it would do to you, the most common one being the microchips, which I still love because of how funny it is. But one thing that I didn't know about was how common they were in parts outside of the US, with there being a pretty big group right next to America, that being in Canada. And you'd think that they wouldn't be as crazy just because of that whole Canadian friendly image thing. But in the story that I learned about this one group, there were points where it's just called flat out a cult, which makes sense when you hear their goals of executing nurses, doctors, and anyone who gives out the vaccine, which sounds scary, until you realize that they don't really have any firepower to back that up and spend more of the time doing campaigns. Like at first look, it really does seem like a nice group with a kind message, like the kind of thing you see every day outside with an old guy giving out pamphlets. That is until you hear a short description of what they really want you to achieve.
In the past few years, the presence of conspiracy theories has become far more prevalent in the landscape of American politics. It seems like a new character is always popping out of the woodwork to spread the word about secret satanic cabals or injections containing poisonous microchips, no matter how ludicrous their claims might be. But while many of these figures focus...
That probably is the rarest conspiracy theory I've heard. Still the best though, so funny.
The influence of some have spread far beyond their country of origin. That brings us to the summer of 2021, when a new voice emerged among these theorists, one that claimed to hold an entirely new political position. That voice belonged to none other than Romana Didulo, a British Columbia-based
That is a good name. You can tell it's gonna be a good story just from the author of this documentary, the Bowl, whatever her name was. So good.
Actual power over the country, the name stuck, and her followers proved to be as devoted to her message as medieval knights. Those proclamations were primarily oriented around the global issues that started in 2020, and she showed no sign of mercy for medical professionals who were dealing with them. In a video uploaded to her Telegram account, Didulo called for doctors and nurses to receive, quote, 2 bullets to the forehead for each child that they harmed as a result of injecting this experimental injection.
Oh my god, what? I had to wait for like a second and the first thing was like, she wants to shoot every goddamn doctor. Like what?
People agreed with this extreme messaging, but the response was not limited to the internet posts. Under Didulo's direction, her Canadian followers began to harass local businesses, governments, police forces, and any other organization.
I love the signature, we the people. They put it both in type and signature. Jesus.
One group in Alberta even walked onto the grounds of an elementary school while classes were going on to hand out notices and anti-vax flyers. Of course, they were kicked off of the grounds.
I like how they always target people that have no effect on the impact they want to make. Like really school children? Are they really gonna go convince the parents not to get the vaccine?
Would be executed. And although she had no real way of delivering on that promise, her believers continued to rally around her slogan of peace, prosperity, or perish. As the Queen's influence continued to spread,
just from the short description, it sounds more like a sort of happened in America and not Canada. Like I feel like Canada was probably the first country, or one of the first, to like be the happiest to get a vaccine, you know, and not have people like protesting on the streets.
For war crimes, several months before her actual death, I might add, the only organization she had any affiliation with was an online political party known as the...
Man, she served in that picture right there.
The party had not been officially registered anywhere, but it was incorporated by Didulo herself in 2020. This was the latest of many businesses she had tried to get off the ground, most of which were shuttered due to her failure.
I love that, self-declared Queen of Canada. That's good.
Popular conspiracy theory.
That title, not the Queen part, the self-declared part, makes it more powerful.
Despite the fact that Didulo had shown no actual evidence of the tribunals or executions she claimed to be holding, her followers believed that it was all true, and supported her calls for death with joy and relief. These followers came from a variety of conspiracy communities, but the Queen's methods and perspectives took a general...
My eyes immediately focused on anti-lockdown zealots. I love that word so much.
People who believe that laws...
It's funny, Canada would be the one country I believe these like words apply, like hooligans, zealots.
Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Am I being detained?
The cease and desist letters turned out to be just the first step in the new monarch's reign. In November 2021,
it's gonna be like Victor in Black Ops. Step 1, freedom, or get the keys, whatever.
And kill anyone who would inoculate a child under the coded phrase, duck hunting season. The ducks in question were healthcare workers, all of whom would be subjected to execution by the Kingdom of Canada's military. A force that,
Kingdom of Canada, hell yeah.
Dedulo's talking points had no real definition. She also called on her.
This story sounds like one of those like campaigns for like some African president who are like, we're gonna kill all the white people. Like I swear it happened at least in 3 countries in Africa. But of course it doesn't work because most of the white people like work in farms, so you know, if you want all your food gone, there you go.
While she was taken to a Royal Jubilee hospital in Victoria for a psych evaluation, where she was allegedly cleared by a psychologist. The RCMP did not confirm or deny that these events took place. On December 2nd, the police came back into Dedulo's orbit when one of her followers in Quebec was arrested after posting a duck hunting threat towards his daughter's school. After this, Romana publicly backpedaled on the hunting idea. But the threat and the discussion around it was left up on television.
If I lived in Canada, the idea of like that would immediately make my brain fly to purge, and I'd be like, it's pretty badass. Maybe we should kill like innocent nurses trying to vaccinate children. Hell yeah.
Performing citizen arrests on those who were inoculating children. At this point, extremism experts started to call Dedulo's rhetoric concerning. Given that she was instructing her followers to use public venues to hold all traitors until they could be executed by firing squad or hanging, this label was not an exaggeration. But the rhetoric only got more extreme from there.
They're so arrogant, thinking that they could like hold a group of nurses or doctors in some place, as if they have big enough power to actually do that.
To enter Canada. And any who did not make it through were to be labeled as invaders and occupiers, who were also to be shot on sight. Her followers showed an overwhelmingly positive response to this idea, with some calling directly for the death of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. At this point, Dedulo had established.
There's no way people can have guns. The most advanced weapon they have are like some decent, accurate flintlock pistol at best.
But just like so many other conspirators before her, those who had invested in her message had to stay loyal out of the hope that she might one day deliver on her promises. While the detainments and public executions that Romana endlessly posted about never came to pass.
I've never heard of this story because I feel like when the vaccines rolled out a long time ago, I would have heard this story about the first. It's like a lot of countries aren't taking the vaccine well, but Canada, ooh, they're really not taking it well.
Declaring those services free. However, her followers soon found the idea only worked in theory, and had their power shut off or received bills that skyrocketed in costs. Those who reached out to their queen for answers or support were met with silence, and found their beliefs being mocked when they tried to get help from outside the community. Many of Dedulo's followers were vulnerable.
Also, I guess it's like a cult where they really close off anyone like tied to it, like family members.
In early 2023, one Alberta-based follower had her house foreclosed upon after refusing to pay her mortgage, resulting in her family being forcibly removed from their property and left to face the Canadian winter without any of their belongings. Even after months of requests from the affected parties, the Queen offered no response. By the summer of 2022, while she was still being inundated with requests for financial help.
He said the cold, harsh Canadian winter, but his paycheck looks nice, okay? Stop complaining.
Her followers had gifted her an
I want to know how much money could they like mass up if every single follower really like just scraped all the money together by like selling the house, selling the car, every little bit. It has to be a lot. But then what do you do if you don't achieve a goal? Like each follower is now homeless and they need more money now.
She announced that she had become a leader of the world, although this claim was no more legitimate than the others. Many more decrees followed, ranging from declaring Victoria the new capital of Canada to raising the age of consent to 24. But even as so many of them were left in financial ruin by her anti-tax orders, the Queen and her entourage still insisted that her followers should pay for the RVs. Many did so without question, raising more than $100,000 while putting their own lives.
Jesus Christ. That's what I mean. Like, if you're devout enough, you will just listen to no reason and just give all your money to run to one like huge leader.
When this plan was put into action by a group led by local resident Frank Curtin, the only...
Well, I don't want to say Free Romana Diderot did any... What a bizarre Dutch name. What is that like origin from? Because she looks Asian, right? But that name sounds like from Lord of the Rings. Anyways, followers charged after attempting to arrest Peterborough police. Oh, that's good. If it was in the US, it wouldn't be charged, it would be shot after trying to arrest police.
The days that followed, 3 more arrests were made against those who were seen assaulting officers and counter-protesters. In response to these events, the mayor of Peterborough called Didulo and her followers fuckwads. And during this disastrous rally, Didulo herself...
I respect that more if they were like, we treat this group seriously, just being like squads, just being like kids.
Kind of support. Even in the face of such monumental failures, support for the Queen of Canada remained strong and resolute. She even accumulated a real-world volunteer staff of 12 people who accompanied her on her journey.
Wow, 12 people. If they get 5 more, they're gonna rule the country.
As more information about this staff was unearthed, it was revealed that they were expected to shop and cook for Didulo, with one former follower telling Vice News that the Queen had once woken her up at 4 a.m. to operate her hotel's coffee machine. Most of the information about the inner workings of the Queen's court came from supporters who had grown tired of their leader's treatment of them. One such follower described an environment of non-stop abuse, with sleep and proper meals being withheld.
Wait a second, you're telling me this cult that wanted to kill innocent doctors and nurses wasn't that nice on the inside? What?
Was going to the Queen's head, and anyone who had spoken out against her methods and mission was deemed to be a traitor and promised a death sentence. Any action that was taken without her explicit permission was met with more threats of death from Didulo's non-existent military. But since so many of her followers had been alienated from their friends and family due to their devotion to her cause, they had nowhere else to turn. At this point, further cracks on Didulo's reign started to appear.
Within by this point, if this by more present day, it's no longer about them believing in the cause, but now just feeling forced into it because they're that deep in.
Appointing new royals at every turn and starting feuds with almost all of them, she encountered more obstacles, most of which were created.
Oh, I love these subcaptions. Romana Diderot is appointing leaders around the world and preparing a secondary government for, in quote, if and when the other governments fall or fail. Oh my god, dude. I love just how the confidence, like, it really is like just power. If you're confident, you can do anything. Like, have a second government, but still have no military, you know, for the executions you want to accomplish.
Roger Stone was posted to a fake account on Telegram. The video showed him delivering a message of support for Didulo, but Stone himself quickly emerged to call the video a scam, saying that it was a cameo commission that had been repurposed.
Oh my god. Do politicians go on cameo? No way.
A desperate attempt to portray more mainstream support for...
There's probably a watermark on the bottom left and they just cropped it out, which is pretty funny. Also, yeah, it doesn't make sense. If he really did support or advocate for that group, whatever, surely he would be in some office and not some Las Vegas hotel room like he was in earlier.
That Didulo had been using her followers' bank accounts, sometimes without their permission, to raise and manage funds. The convoy of RVs had become her home, and the only thing keeping it afloat was donations. Even when they were...
Oh, is she a traveler? Hell yeah.
Their queen was scamming them, the money didn't stop flowing. But soon, even Didulo's vehicle was under threat. In October, the family who had rented their RV to her convoy said that the Queen had voided their rental contracts and wasn't answering any of the requests about returning the vehicle. Believe it or not, Didulo had lied about where she intended to take the RV and had racked up several thousands of dollars worth of damage during her cross-country tour. At one point, one of the Queen's followers
There's no way she's that like national famous to be having tours like a rock band. No way.
Soon after, and were quickly labeled as traitors who deserved execution by those who stayed loyal. Eventually, Didulo abandoned the vehicle near a Manitoba gas station, leaving it thoroughly broken and full of empty sardine cans. As 2023 rolled around,
what a bizarre detail.
Messaging has stayed largely the same.
How abundant were those cans that whoever investigated was like, I have to include this in the report?
And she even began producing her own currency, while requesting that her followers continue donating real money so she could print more. In the middle of March, her Telegram account...
That would be like Nigerian dollars, where like 100,000 would be like $10 in America.
Her royal title. In September, they set up shop at an old abandoned school in the village of Richmond. As could probably be expected, the locals were less than pleased with this development. Many of them decided to protest the group's arrival, allegedly resulting in them receiving violent threats from Didulo's followers via email. This was enough for Richmond's mayor, Brad Miller, to ask the federal government to assist in the situation, although they were unable to do anything. Only a couple of months later, though, the Queen of Canada and her cult were forced to leave the school, at least briefly. During one of her many live streams, her critics noticed something interesting in the background, a heater propped up by a propane tank. Seeing as this was a major fire code violation, it was exactly the sort of thing the mayor had been looking for in order to get rid of the village's problem. The fire chief
also, it was one of those things where like, okay, it's a cult, which I guess isn't illegal, but we need one thing to, throw them in jail. It was that.
Enter the building, they quickly loaded up their RV and went elsewhere. While this may have seemed like a victory at first, her opponents were disappointed to find out that the caravan had only traveled about 11 kilometers outside of town, to a small patch of unused farmland. And it was only a couple of weeks later that
I was about to make a joke.
back to living in the school after the violation had been rectified, proving that no matter how much Canadians may not want her around, their self-proclaimed queen is here to stay.
Hell yeah. I was about to say, when he said RV, I just immediately saw all of like Breaking Bad, because my brain is hollow. But now that he mentioned as well that it was parked up on some farmland out of nowhere, that is probably like the best Canadian equivalent of like Jesse and Walt cooking meth out in the desert. Man, that story was gold. Like, I love hearing about cults because it can go both ways. Insanely powerful, where like no one can stop them because like how much control they have over like some bum town, whatever, or it'll be just really tiny and embarrassing where they have a huge boom of followers, but it plateaus there where they don't have any more people coming in, and the people that are like devoted to it slowly try to like fade away from it. And you know what, as a tip to Romana, don't make it like one of your biggest campaigns as like a leader of a cult about like COVID or whatever, or like the vaccines, because after a while everyone's gonna get them, and like your biggest pillar in this campaign of yours is gonna be gone. So like, what else can you promote to make people believe in you? But I will say, I do respect her ambition and tenacity. Most people would just give up or like resign after most of their money is gone. But the fact like she was able to like hold out in a tiny RV and set up camp in like an abandoned school, whatever, and then leave that and keep on going through Canada, that takes like courage. And you know what, also, that one part was so weird about like the mayor of the town that she was staying at. They found like one reason to get arrested of putting a heater next to a propane tank, which I'm pretty sure, won't cause anything. It's like a blow up out of nowhere. I don't know, it might, I don't know. But the fact like they needed one reason to arrest her is scary, because I feel like most of the stuff, like the threat of executing people that give her vaccines, I feel like that'd be enough to just like put some charge against her. If you was one person saying that, who cares? There's 1,000 people every day that say they want to kill someone. But if she has like a huge rhetoric of like fanatics that are with her cause and support her, I feel like that's at least a little bit of motivation to push you and be like, okay, what's your reason behind this? And if so, can you actually carry on these threats that you have made up in your head? Which of course they didn't, because they live in Canada. They don't live like in a lawless land where they can do whatever they want. I guess the best avenue for this insane idea was to like make their own government, like as part of Canada, like their own separate state, like a tiny patch of land. But even then, that would make more sense than just executing doctors or nurses at the airports, schools. That just seems so bizarre, I don't know what I'm trying to give reasoning to this cult that was just full of insane people, but I guess, I don't know.